Episodes 3 of Sir Ulrich Host Money Matters. Remember to click the subscribe button if you have not yet. Your engagement is vital to executing the Money Matters mission. So how do you prosper in a world built against you? Rational thought, objectivity, hard work. Where do we begin? Well, maybe I should ask our two guests. First, let me welcome Karla Treadway. How are you, girl?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me here on the show.
Right on. Could you give me a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a business coach. I'm a digital marketer, a podcaster, and I guess you could call me a freedom fighter as well. I've been making content and doing whatever I can to shed a light on the things that are going on in this world. It's been a big change in the last 4 years, where I used to have a brick and mortar business. And as soon as I saw what was going on in the climate, I shifted everything to online. And I help other people who understand that we have a problem and we can't really do things the old way, working in the 9 to 5 matrix, because we're vulnerable. So I basically teach people how to take their power back by way of purposeful work, matrix-free living, and creating money outside of the traditional system.
Right on. I appreciate that. And then I also want to welcome Audrey Santo Domingo. How are you?
Good, good. How are you? Thanks for having me on as well.
Thank you so much. So again, let's get a quick introduction from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in the Matrix for over 20 years doing my corporate finance thing downtown Toronto. And then when everything happened 4 years ago, I decided, you know what, it's really the individual, the small, medium business that really need to leverage this information, learn financial literacy from a personal or a business standpoint. Also, freedom fighter at large have, I started my soapbox on the Great Reset, and just started coaching on the wealth side from there. So very much aligned to Karla, just more so in the finance space.
Right on. Okay, so a couple things there, like, and maybe one thing in particular. So I want you to describe to me, what's the Great Reset, Audrey?
Yeah. The Great Reset basically has 3 pillars in which they want to shift society. And that is with socioeconomic, which is basically, the social things that they're pushing down the pipe with very groupthink type of mentality. The second one is healthcare. So that is which everything that happened over the last 4 years is an area in which they want to start pushing their digital technology, but the most critical pillar is their digital transformation. And it's essentially converting things from the current systems into blockchain. And with that, blockchain will then incentivize, obviously, cryptocurrencies, but also central bank digital currencies, very much run on the digital IDs, and then you open up into the world of smart cities. So where they're going to sell it on convenience, faster transactions, 24-hour, customer service, low transaction fees, all that kind of stuff. There is the other side of it where, because everything is traceable, even though they will say it's very private, it really depends on what you're in. But the central bank digital currency, as an example, all of that will be recorded. It does pose a threat to our autonomy. And so with the Great Reset, it's essentially, in a nutshell, the digital transformation of our systems across all industries, healthcare, finance, education, agriculture, to be able to track and trace in a lot tighter detail.
Right on. So pulling on that thread, and Karla, I'd like you to answer this. You said you help people kind of get out of this 9 to 5 dynamic, and this Great Reset, it seems to be focused on the general population, whereas the elites in society kind of get to go about business as usual. What do you pose as the main risk to the people working these regular jobs? Because I have a regular job and I'm also kind of a sovereign individual as well in many ways. But I still, after this podcast, I'm going to my my ball and chain job, if you will. What do you pose as the risk again to staying in that world, Karla?
I mean, we saw during COVID, everything that you've worked for can be gone overnight. So I already was an entrepreneur pre-COVID, and I thought that was my path to freedom. I had my own business. I was the boss. I had the biggest yoga and fitness studio in my town here. I had built it up to something really amazing. And then during lockdowns, it took almost no time at all to completely drain my bank accounts. And I was completely victim to any of the rules that they were imposing on me. So I chose to close because I saw what a trap that was. And most people don't even have that. They're working for other people. So the people that I work with now, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're teachers, they've gone to university, they've invested all this time, money, and energy into a career. And all of a sudden it's not aligned. So yes, the danger of losing your money, your job, that's a huge practical risk. But also the thing that really gets people the most is they were forced to stay in jobs or do things that they actually didn't agree with. It rattled their, pardon me, it rattled their value system to the core. They were forced to do something that they didn't want to, and that's soul sucking. So money is important, but also being in integrity with your value system, because we also have to live as human beings in this world.
Right on. Okay. So money is important, and we're on the Money Matters show. And so achieving financial freedom is, and I'll ask Audrey to answer this and then Karla as well. Is it possible to attain financial freedom as as a person working in the regular, 9-to-5 realm, or is it possible to move the needle? What's the greatest obstacle besides the ones that you guys have already mentioned of achieving financial freedom today? First Audrey, then Karla.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's totally possible, but people need to understand that it's a journey. So we live in a world where the mindset is instant gratification, but any kind of wealth building strategy happens over time. And the goal is generational wealth. So while someone can be in a job, let's call it they're making 50 grand, someone in a job making 50 grand a year can potentially put more wealth away versus someone who's making $1 million a year and not know how to reserve that for generational purposes. So the biggest thing is mindset. Whether you're in a job or running your own business, if you don't have that financial literacy and those boundaries in place to be able to put some stuff aside, put some money aside in order to invest into passive income producing assets, you will always be stuck, whether you're running your own business, making $1 million a year, or in a job making 50 grand a year. So that's the one thing that I have to say about that. The other piece is financial freedom really, to me, is an ecosystem. Finance is a very small part of it. For someone to achieve overall wealth, it's really the ecosystem of your access to food, water, shelter, security, community, barterability, as well as money. So, financial freedom is one thing, but freedom in and of itself is, I believe, something related to wealth, and it includes everything. So, the rich, there's that saying, the rich have money, but the wealthy have freedom. So what is the goal? It's going to be different for everyone. For someone who's probably lower income, who can't, cover their day-to-day expenses, money is going to be the short-term goal. Whereas someone who is, higher income, probably more affluent, they're looking for ways to open up freedom channels.
Okay, right on. And Karla, what do you have to say about that one? Again, achieving financial freedom today, obstacles for the common man. Go ahead.
I mean, moving to the digital space, obviously, it increases your opportunity for making way more money. You have a global audience. It's never been easier to have a business. We have these things in our pockets. We have free marketing. It's not like the old days where you had to knock on doorways and you had a briefcase trying to sell something. Anyone can have a business. The limitations in that world, though, is that it actually requires quite a bit of strategy. It is helpful to have multiple streams of revenue. You hear people talk about that a lot. The problem is, though, people don't really know what they're doing. So they hear that it's easy. They hear that anyone can do it. They hear about financial freedom and like working from home and all these things, but they don't know how to do it. Or they spread themselves so thin that they never become masterful at anything. So you see like people chasing like the next shiny thing, but never actually spending the time that it would take. Like Audrey said, it's going to take time to grow a business or to grow an investment account. You have to boundary some of that. So yes, to multiple streams of income. Like I teach people how to build multiple offers within your business, but also you can't be chasing 25 things or you'll get absolutely nowhere because our time is finite.
Right on, right on. Okay. So again, I heard mindset, financial literacy, and I also heard technology as an enabler. Financial literacy, it's funny, and you made that perfect analogy, that, your gross income versus what you keep, your net at the end of the day, your bottom line. I feel that this world is driven by consumerism, and I feel like that the world being driven by consumerism is purposeful, to keep the velocity of money, to keep fiat kind of in its natural state of always moving and hard to track and hard to pin down who owns what. What do you say is the biggest misconception for the common man for financial literacy? Where do you see that people just don't understand about money enough to be better situated the next day than they were the day before? I'll start with Karla.
I mean, we were never taught this. We were never taught this in school. And if I'm going to get tinfoily, I might even say that was purposeful.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
We were never taught about entrepreneurship, for example. I did a post the other day about how you've been programmed to be poor. We don't know how to leverage debt for investments, for example. We think it's safe to be in the 9 to 5 and the university route is the only way that we should go. We're not even taught about trades in high school. Maybe that's changed since I went to school, but we're not really taught about money. And we're in a situation right now where we have a lot of adults that are coming to that realization, oh my God, I don't even know how to budget, let alone invest. And when you see how people live their daily lives buying brand new trucks or homes that are $1 million, meanwhile, when you look at the money that they're bringing in, it's like, you can't afford that. You can't have a $15 Starbucks coffee every day. And it's that consumerism that's really trapping people. People just quite frankly aren't paying attention. And that way of living is fine as long as nothing ever goes wrong. There's no illness, nothing bad happens to the economy. There's no great reset. Then maybe you can truck along like that for a while. But I think this financial stuff that we're heading into is really going to whip people's heads back. They have no idea how supremely vulnerable they are. So really, it just starts practical. We're on these devices all day long that are flashing fancy things in our faces. And that's what we're spending our money on, instead of health, longevity, sustainability. We're not thinking about 5, 10, 100 years from now, right? We're thinking about what do I want right now? And that really comes down to a society that is obsessed with being comfortable. They can't handle discomfort at like the smallest level, right? Like how many people wake up and they say, I'm not going to have 3 coffees today. And then they go ahead and do it because we're a permissive culture. And when you see the people in this world that are doing really, really well, when you see millionaires, billionaires, what else are they doing in addition to making money and becoming masterful at their craft? They're doing ice baths. They're waking up at 5 a.m. and going on like arduous runs. They understand that you need to be uncomfortable, that you need to be able to embrace hard times, that you need to be able to persevere through resistance. Most people now don't do that. They're obsessed with their feelings. They're obsessed with being comfortable, and they don't know how to get through the slightest bit of discomfort, let alone the big stuff.
You just inspired me to go get my ice bath. I've been putting it off for months, and I know I need to go get one because the last time I did it, I felt 15 years younger. Audrey, do you want to add anything else? That financial literacy, what is the problem with people and their literacy about money and finance in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's made complicated intentionally to make sure that we never hone in on the power of it. And we are in a framework, and you mentioned it earlier, of consumerism. It's consume and obey. Like, it's a real framework that we are placed into. And so part of that consume and obey framework is to make sure that we're not aware of the power we have to create from within and to generate income. We literally become our own money printers. People don't know that power because the process is, you're birthed, you go to school, you go to an institution to learn things that don't serve you in your adult life. They teach you things that serve you to be a cost input into a job where you are capped, your value is capped. And let's use $50,000 as an example from before. Your value is capped at that 50 grand a year, and you work 40 years to earn 2% every year on top of that. And what we're taught to do with that money is to save in a 1% savings account and then put it into a registered government account that we can't touch until we're 65. So the disempowerment is real. The programming is real to keep people, sick, weak, poor, and dumb is real within this greater framework that's been rolled out globally. And so one of the biggest things with financial literacy is to awaken to that power. But first, it's to awaken to, I can't just put my money in a savings account. There have to be other vehicles that are going to make me more than 1%. There have to be other ways that I can generate $1 without giving, the government 45% of that. There has to be a way in which I can choose how I retire instead of putting money into a government system where they're just going to turn around, earn 30 to 40%, pay me 5% when I'm 65. And if I try to take it out, they slap me with the tax withholding. Mm-hmm. So with financial literacy, what people face with on the onset is just how overwhelming it is. And it's overwhelming for that reason. But once you realize, this system is put in place to actually dampen, my empowerment, to dim my light, then it's really the person's will to want to learn more. And it's that person's will to want to find ways to create wealth outside of that process that 99% of people are in. And I have a very simple rule of thumb. If 99% of people are doing it, I'm going to do the opposite. So maybe it even just starts with that because it applies to everything: your health, your wealth, your relationships. If 99% of people are, going to McDonald's, I'm not. If 99% of people are putting their money into a savings account, I'm not going to do that. The answers are there. It's just the person's will to be able to feel empowered to find them.
Yeah, it's so funny when you live with the masses, you kind of get that same result as them, and you can't wonder like, oh, why am I not differentiating myself? And if you kind of live towards how the elite, how the successful live, even if you don't have their earning potential, you start to separate yourself from the flock, and that could lead to opportunities and general life success. I also want to touch on something: the 2% interest annually and can't touch it till you retire. Even though it's another effort I do, I just released a video today that used that exact same information, SWAN originals with SWAN Bitcoin.
Mm.
And it's really remarkable that when you think about, and I use 3% compounding as opposed to 2%, so yours is so much more dire. But it's like, oh my, like, this is so sad. And of course, I have a 401k or a retirement that I can't touch as well until then. But it's like, you have to realize that they are using your money, you're giving it to them literally interest free, so they can go invest, steal, manipulate on their own whim. And that's a lot of reasons we run into these problems with our financial crises. It's like, oh, they take all our money and start investing in dumb shit, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, I thought you had our money. No, we don't have any. It's only a matter of time before it happens to one of the major institutions. So you guys talked about technology as an enabler, and then but then we also have, multiple streams of income, and of course, and probably one of the more traditional ways to establish another stream of income is real estate. So this is kind of a twofold question, so I can shut up and you guys can talk. I want you guys to talk about, and first, Karla, I want you guys to talk about technology as an enabler, kind of break that, maybe open that, peel that onion back a little bit more, and then also talk to me about real estate. Is it still a legitimate investment for people now? Go ahead, Karla.
Sure. I mean, technology's never been easier. People get really overwhelmed before they start actually diving in, but it's really at the point where, I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. I can ask them how to do things now. It's very much like caveman style. Like, I want this thing over here. Oh, I can actually just like grab it with my finger and pull it over here. It's getting easier and easier and faster, and it's here to stay. Even something like AI, where a lot of people are resistant to the idea, get used to it. It's here. We want to know how to use it, and we also want to know its limitations and its downsides. So AI, for example, I will use to help me do things faster in my business, like email marketing and things that could take hours and hours of time. Where I want to be careful with something like AI is that I'll let it write my emails or do some administration tasks, the same things that I would outsource, but it will never, ever write my pivotal content. It'll never do my workshop. It'll never write a book for me. Why? Because people that do that, they will get dumber. And what did we see in the last 4 years? Oh, you have to wear a mask because your immune system is insufficient for you to go outside. Okay, you need an iPhone because your memory isn't good enough for you to remember how to get to that store yourself. You have to immediately pull up the GPS. Okay, you have to use the AI to generate your own ideas. So the more that, if you don't use technology consciously, you will get dumber. You will become insufficient. So we do need to use it wisely, use it as the assistant, as the helper. But it's amazing. It's amazing. It can speed up your business. It can quantum leap your business forward in a way that just working in a store and networking and shaking hands just never could. I have access to billions of people on these apps, global reach. So it is a good thing. It makes things infinitely easier. Real estate, I'm a huge believer in. We have 6 rental properties. Nothing out of country yet, but we will. I'm here to stay and fight for Canada to the very bitter end. This is where I stay. However, I'm not opposed to having an exit strategy. And I would also like to have money in a bank account that's not in Canada, especially someone doing the work that I do. It's actually pretty dangerous at this point. The podcast, the things that I talk about publicly, we have a looming social credit system. My bank accounts were already at risk of being frozen during the convoy because I help with the documentary team. So I know that very real threat. So real estate is valuable. It's practical. And personally, I like to live in the space where I don't make the assumption that I know what's going to happen in the future. I don't want to live like a doomsday prepper. I don't want to have a pile of gold or just Bitcoin and then I just sit here and I wait for the world to crumple. That's not how I choose to live. So I work in marketing. We set goals. We set targets. we don't always make our target. So we have the Great Reset, and we have these globalists trying to do something. Trying to do something and can they do it are two different things. So I watch what's going on. I strategically prepare. I do believe in prepping, but I also live in this space where I don't know what's going to happen. So in the meantime, I'm going to continue to make money. I'm going to grow a business. I'm going to invest in real estate. It's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because I don't want to waste this time. I can't predict what's going to happen in the future. So yes, to real estate, it's practical depending on where you buy it. I used to live in Whistler. My old house just sold for $1.5 million. It's a trailer. So stuff like that. I don't
Of
know.
course, it would be a trailer. Do you know the views that you get at the top of Whistler? Oh my gosh, I've only seen them from pictures. I need to go next year. I'm a snowboarder.
But yeah, we buy real estate in places where there's a ton of people looking for residences. The rent is high, the property values are low. Like, that's just common sense. That's a good business decision right now. Also buying in other places like Costa Rica, where Audrey lives.
Yay.
Thank you for this
Be
segue.
neighbors.
I don't even need to say anything, Audrey. In case you forgot, technology is an enabler. Real estate, twofold question, not necessarily related.
Yeah.
Go on your monologue. Go ahead.
Yeah, technology. Totally agree with Karla. It's great to be able to automate the things that don't keep you in your genius. So I think AI will really elevate those who remain creative, remain conscious, stay true in who they are, because it automates all of the stuff that they're not. With that said, anyone who is kind of in a very redundant type of role will unfortunately be replaced. And I hate using that word because I don't feel humans are replaceable, but that's how they see us. That's how they view us. They literally view us as vermin that take up space. And if they can automate us as much as they can, then they will. And unfortunately, if you're not going to continue to exercise your thinking, your consciousness, your creativity, it's going to be very easy for AI to replace that. So it is just a tool at the end of the day, a tool that I use all the time. But people need to be careful with how they participate with it in their day-to-day life, because it is really easy to just kind of shut the brain off and let it do the thing for you. And it's doing that with a lot of the population. I've been on multiple digital transformation projects where, because of digital implementation, we're literally letting go of 2,000-3,000 people in a workforce in a week. It's crazy. And when we see just kind of the cost-cutting efforts of companies that are specifically in the big tech space, it's with every industry, but in the big tech space, they're letting go of 20 to 30% of their staff. It's all through automation. And so when we see those patterns in the world happening where technology is literally replacing human beings, what do we do in order to keep who we are as sovereign beings? And it's to know that it's there, use it for the things that that are not so fun, and then really focus on your health, your well-being, things that keep you human, and then create businesses and spaces outside of what they have planned for us. So what does that mean? It means, learn how to grow your own food. If agriculture is a place in which they're going to put their technology, and the farmers are going to get replaced with robots, and all the accountants are going to get replaced with blockchain, what can you do knowing that information to maintain, your creativity, your wealth creation? What channels are there for you, knowing that this is coming? So, that's my take on technology. I use it all the time. I mean, we're online here together because of it. So I appreciate it in so many ways, but also do see the negative impact that it has on humanity if the person is not even aware. So that's that. And again, couldn't agree with Karla more on the real estate. It's a tangible asset. And so I've been asked many times, Audrey, what happens in a cyber attack? And, when you don't have access to your bank accounts or your crypto, what will you have access to? You'll have access to what's real. and that includes real estate, that includes your precious metals, but more importantly, your food, water, shelter, security, community, relationships. It's that stuff. If in the event everything goes offline, which I don't believe it's going to be that apocalyptic, real estate is definitely something that you want in your portfolio. Real estate also, just from a finance standpoint, has so many ways to grow your wealth. It's a legacy item, but also obviously there's capital appreciation. So you buy it at one point, you sell it for a higher price, and then there's rental income for cash flow. So real estate has so many opportunities. It's the opportunity from a finance standpoint on how big the gains could be really is dependent on where you're going to buy. Just rule number one, investment 101, you buy low and you sell high. So, similar to what Karla was saying, if the property value is low and if it's in an area where it's going to appreciate quickly because of certain demographics or the rental cash flow opportunities there, 100%. Like go for it. With the higher interest rates, because that's the pushback that people are the limit, the ceiling, the pushback that people are getting with going into real estate right now, because you've got interest rates at now 7-8%. In Canada, we've got about, I think, I want to say like 60% of the mortgages coming up for renewal in the next month or so, which means anyone who had like a 2% interest is potentially walking now into a 7% interest mortgage. The only thing that really can combat that right now is to pay lump sums. So real estate is 100% a valuable asset. The entry is difficult because it requires a high capital outlay. The interest rates don't make it easier either. And so, I encourage people, if you can't afford in your particular area, maybe there's an opportunity somewhere else, like Costa Rica, like where I live, as an example. So I encourage people to start to look outside of their own home, outside of their, their local community, outside of their country.
Brilliant answers from both of you. I appreciate those. A couple things to go back on. It's so funny, the AI dynamic. I used an example of back in the 1900s, people were starting to get home pools for their personal residence, maybe 1920s or something. But back then, the tractors, the big machinery wasn't there, and you needed 20 guys to dig a hole in the ground to fill that pool. And then all of a sudden, the big machinery started coming in, and those 20 guys shrank down to probably 3. One person driving, one person spotting, and maybe another person surveying. And so when you think about that, I just feel like AI is kind of that next generation, but for rudimentary white collar work. Audrey, you mentioned accounting. I generally like to use the term paper pushing for things that aren't that. If you're a lot of government work, a lot of mainstream big business work where they just have people kind of filling the gaps to integrate processes. Then one of you guys, I forget, mentioned tech layoffs, and I'm wondering, is this a dynamic of these elite companies becoming overbloated too much, too fast in a world of easy money over the last 20 years? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Tech layoffs, is it good for the economy? Is it bad? Where do they go from here, essentially? I'll start with Audrey.
Yeah, tech layoffs, part of it is to maintain profits. So technology is an expensive product to create. So if you're creating, an AI chatbot, or if you're creating automation within the supply chain, if you're creating automation, within a department of a company, all of that costs millions of dollars to create. So they outlay the $1 million, they create the automation, and then they let go of the people that automation then replaces. So it's the layoffs are as a result of cost cutting, because they would have had to outlay a capital investment to create a product or a service, which then has costs, month over month, year over year. on top of the people that are still there. So in order to maintain their profits, they have the cost of this new system, but then they still have the cost of the people. So they have to now let go of something, and it's going to be the people. And I watched an interview with, I can't remember his name, Yuri something. He's one of the top advisors of WEF. And he's that short little guy with the glasses, you know, bald head. And he hates humans.
You're talking about brown skin?
He's got like tan skin.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but continue. I'm sorry.
He's been one of the advisors on so many things social, including AI. And he said, you know, he goes, what you're seeing is a new class of people. And this new class of people are useless. He goes, so what do we do with the useless people? We replace them with AI. And if they're still around, you just feed them with drugs and video games. That's literally what he said on a stage of, I don't know how many people were in front of him. Every time this guy speaks, there's thousands of people listening.
And they're clapping.
Yeah. And oh my God, they're clapping. Just they're celebrating all of this. And I just thought, like, wow, this is literally how they view humanity. And so in terms of, you know, going back to your question with what does this mean? It just means more automation. They're waiting for the population to just kind of settle in whatever that new state is. If it's 7 billion people now, is it 5 billion people in the next 20 years? I don't know, whatever that new number of their acceptable human population is, who knows? But the intention is to constantly replace humans with AI. Right now, it's happening because of profits. They don't have profits. Like, there was a former client that I was working on, and it was a tech client, and the market sentiment was grow at all costs, which means you could grow revenue and have negative income. So the new sentiment now is grow, but with zero income, which means they have to cut about 20 to 30% of their costs in order to get to zero profit. So a lot of this tech is happening at a cost to them, but they don't work on 5-year plans. They work on 10-year, 90-year plans. They're extremely patient, and they bank on the generation after us to succeed. They don't bank on us. They bank on the future generations for their plans to succeed. So if they're negative profit now, they're going to be positive profit territory in like 10 years, maybe less.
Karla, you want to add anything to that?
I mean, we're going to see different classes of people. We're going to see different economies. What Audrey's talking about is absolutely a reality, and people will resist it, but the government gets bigger and bigger every single year. These corporations get bigger. That stuff's going to happen, but there's going to be a lot of us that won't play into that. So convenience, for example, a lot of people will continue just to get DoorDash and soak up things from Amazon, and they'll be happy to stay in their 15-minute cities and live in an AI world. And then there'll be a bunch of us that have basically slowly been stepping back in time, learning how to grow our own food, wanting to find our local farmers and buy from them. That's also happening, and that's going to continue to happen. But what I'm also hearing from this conversation is the very real necessity to have skills outside of the tech space, because all these kids are coming out of school a little bit brainwashed by the different ideologies and thinking this is the way, not realizing that they are digging their own graves, that they are going to be the ones that will be sacrificed later, that there won't be a job for them in the future. And I heard this coach say the other day, she was talking about money mindset, and I understand her thinking, but she was trying to say money doesn't make you safe. That is a lie, that money makes you safe. You know, back in the day, we would forage and we would hunt and we didn't need money. Money doesn't actually make you safe. And I was listening to her speak, and all I could think was, do you know how to do that? Of course you don't. Like, I'm in a hunting family. We have 5 freezers of moose meat. If there was a cyber attack tomorrow, our family, even in very cold Canada, would be fine. We have rifles. We know how to hunt. We know how to fish. We know how to grow food. We know how to make fires. We would be 100% okay. Your average human being in 2024 doesn't even know how to cook for themselves. They don't know how to they don't know how to read a map. So those things actually are threats in the future. So while tech is amazing and use it and these jobs are important, also we need to get back to some more traditional skills. We need to be able to be more capable. You talked about digging the pool. Like, that's great that we can hire it out with machines, but can we also know how to use a shovel?
Well said. Oh man. You both are going to have to come back again, because as you guys were talking, I'm like, we have to talk about this, we have to talk about this, and we have 20 minutes left, and it's like, I want to talk about so much more. Surveillance state. You can't save everyone. Some people are just going to be normies for life, and it's like, and their children, and it's like, you just have to deal with that reality. Everyone won't be a sovereign individual. Skills outside tech. Grow at all cost corporations. A lot of this stuff kind of falls under the minds. Again, this is an ideology kind of dynamic where it's like, hey, yeah, we don't need any real skills. Grow at all cost corporations. They learn that from somewhere. There's the surveillance state. Imagine with corporations as agencies of the surveillance state. Facebook during the 2020 election, and Twitter at that time as well, openly admitting that they played a role in twisting the stories of the Trump-Biden election. What do you like? This seems to come from a generation of education, and I guess I want to jump to this question: is the school system failing society, or is the school system being used the way it's intended, which is an indoctrination tool to keep as many people passive subservience to the state as possible? Karla, I'll start with you.
It's perfect timing. I would have your viewers dive into anything by James Lindsay. He has the New Discourses podcast. No one does a more thorough job of deep diving history and the roots of ideologies. The things that we're seeing right now with our kids, like you said, is the school system failing us? Yes. Our kids have never been worse off. They've never been more depressed. They've never been more dysregulated. They've never been more incompetent. Schools have an express stated position that they're moving away from academics and into social emotional learning, which is social emotional grooming. And if you follow James Lindsay's work, what he sees is this was already done in the 1990s. It was already done. This is not new. It's been happening since the 1990s. And if you look at the roots, our schools are infiltrated with Marxist theory. We're moving away from critical thinking, and children are coming out politically groomed in other ways as well, but politically groomed to believe that socialism is the answer. They are coming out with a victim mindset. They're coming out weak and dependent, thinking that they need to work for the government. But also they are coming out groomed to believe that they need to have an identity crisis right now, where we have this obsession. Again, we're talking about feelings. That seems like a funny thing for a coach to say. I used to be a yoga teacher as well, but it's not helpful to have kids obsess. So now we have kids coming out of school obsessed with their outer identity, with how people perceive them, with what people are calling them. Everybody thinks that they have trauma, everyone, and that's not negating people that have actual trauma, but it's not an opinion. We can see what's happening to our kids, and they're not doing well. And there's over 100% increase in homeschooling for this very reason. And if you look up inclusive capitalism, if you look at the stuff that Klaus Schwab talks about, social emotional learning, SEL in particular, SEL, they're data mining your kids for the Great Reset. they're trying to see what tools work best to manipulate people, to manipulate their actions, to get them into certain work positions, also to influence their buying habits. Schools are
Let me
not
cut you off real quick. SEL, what is that again?
social emotional learning.
All right, I'm sorry. Continue. Sorry to cut you off.
No worries. That's a whole rabbit hole. So the way it's being painted, like lots of things in 2024, it's about teaching our kids to be compassionate and empathetic and aware of their feelings. It sounds like this beautiful thing. But again, when you go to the roots of what it was actually intentionally created for and the creators themselves, you see how sinister this thing actually is. And it's for the Great Reset. And why do I say they're data mining? It's because in all of their documents, and again, James Lindsay talks about this a lot, in all of their documents, they say, well, we don't know if this is going to work. This is why we need to do it for X amount of time. So you're telling me you don't know if this system actually works, yet you've mandated across the board in every single Western school in every single country, and you don't know it's going to work, right? Why would you do something to our children without any data? And then how are you tracking that data? Well, you're not. You're using this just to collect information from the kids so that you can politically groom them for the future. It's a
Mind blown. Mind freaking blown. Yeah, these are the kind of things where it's like the people, and one of you mentioned, probably Audrey, I think the business, how businesses are structuring themselves to have these 10-year, 90-year plans where it doesn't matter, what happens to this generation, because they're going to use this generation to launch themselves, this corporation, this government, to their next generation. They have very low time preference, which is good, generally speaking. I think all individuals should have low time preference. It's something that's been taught as Bitcoiners, where we save and we understand that no matter what's going, the ups and downs of volatility of it, we know where it's going, essentially. But again, these corporations have this low time preference, and they are serving themselves and for their own incentives. And so, talking about these corporations, these these governments, you guys are both from the beautiful country of Canada. Are they on the verge of an economic collapse? I hear a lot. Again, I'm in Los Angeles. I can only hear so much about what's going on in your country, but are you guys going to go through some really troubling times, or is it kind of just, spooking people to keep them, frozen in their little space? I'll start off with Karla.
I think so. I used to think it was because of incompetence, but I don't think it's incompetence at all. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And Trudeau talks a lot about this post-nationalist state. The Great Reset, again, is to dismantle the West, dismantle strong nations. So when you see policies put in place like, oh, we're going to destroy our energy supply and our main source of income for the country, and then you ask yourself, well, why would you do that? And they're using climate change alarmism to push that. And all you have to do is repeat things enough times for people to believe that it's a good idea. But when you ask people questions like, okay, you think that we need to eliminate fossil fuels, for example, and that everyone just drives an electric car and we're all happy. How are you going to heat your home? Because we live in one of the coldest countries on Earth. You can't do that just with electric heat. Our electric grid would go down. It's not even going to be able to handle charging all those electric cars. Why are you putting sanctions on our farmers? That's going to make it impossible for them to grow food for you. The cost of living here is astronomical. To buy food, to buy gas, anything right now. I talked about Whistler and the prices being sky high. Well, I live in a small rural town in northwestern Ontario right now, and the prices are sky high, where you have nurses that are literally living in their car because they can't afford to buy a home. So this is intentional. People know that they will never be able to buy a home here in Canada. They know that life is unaffordable. And then what's going to swoop in? Universal basic income. Look, I believe in social support programs. There are people that genuinely need our help. But what's going to happen when we put UBI out there? Well, we saw it happen with CERB. So during the pandemic, the government gave people $2,000 and everyone quit their jobs. There was a ton of people that took that money and they never went back to work, or they forgot how to work. Like, there's so many businesses in Canada right now that cannot find workers. Meanwhile, it's more expensive than ever. So there's going to be a giant group of people on UBI that don't need to be, they choose to be. And the more people that we're socially supporting, the more money that's going to come out of our pockets. Everyone's going to get poor, which is communism, right? This is what I believe is happening here. And it sounds so tinfoily, but this is absolutely what's happening. This is communism, global socialism. It's happening in China, and this is why people don't see it. China has a unique blend of socialism, communism, and capitalism right now. That's why people don't see it. So the Chinese people have more money than they ever have. They're buying Nikes. They're going to these big shopping malls. So it doesn't quite look like communism, but it is. And that's what's happening here in Canada. Everyone will lose their money more and more. If your money is in the traditional system, it's going to happen. And they're intentionally collapsing our economy so that you don't have a choice but to choose the government handout, which will be paired to the social credit system. And that will be the end of it. And if people think that that is crazy, look what our government's already doing. They're freezing bank accounts. We have political prisoners. We're jailing people for preaching on the street. We have bills that are pre-crime bills. They're trying to pass that right now, Bill C-36, I believe, so that you can report people for thought crimes. This is where we're headed. This is where we're headed for sure.
I know a lot of people that in my neck of the woods that would be happy with a free lunch and a pair of Jordans. And it's like, that's all it takes to pacify the common person out there. They've truly been indoctrinated. Audrey, do you want to add anything to that?
That is a beautiful summary of Agenda 2030. It's and it's all happening. It's for all those reasons why I actually left Canada 3 years ago. I really tried to stay and fight for Canada, stand my ground there, but I was called to create more free and sovereign systems outside of what's happening. So here I am now, and I observe it from the outside. I'm not in the energy of it anymore. And observing from the outside, what I've seen is that it's coming fast and furious. It's not stopping. With the tightening of consumer spend, you've got probably $1.30, $1.35 of debt that every Canadian has for the dollar that they bring in. So they can't afford their living. Before I moved, I saw 60% of the businesses around me, downtown Toronto, just shut down. I saw tent cities grow exponentially. And where Toronto does have a homeless problem, but I was seeing the homeless population grow, and now this time around with children. So it's getting really, when I left, it was really dire. I like to hope and pray sometimes that people do wake up to it, because there's power in the people, where if enough people are online and working together as community, they can build away from the system. Unfortunately, the smart cities, Canada is a hot spot for the smart cities. Trudeau is poised to bring all of that stuff in, whether you're in rural or a city center. I've seen some of the bylaws that are coming in my parents' town of the 15-minute cities, and they're starting to put tariffs on if you start to cross borders of the 15-minute cities. So they're trying to attack from a million different angles, not just, interest and inflation anymore. They're going to tax you if you start to cross those inner city borders. And that is all by design. And Karla mentioned the UBI. So if you disempower people enough, and if you deplete their resources enough, they can't go to their families anymore or their community, which is typically where they'll go. They'll go to Big Brother government. And Big Brother government will say, okay, we can help you, but you need to comply with X, Y, and Z, which is the perfect segue for the social credit system. And where we used to be able to have access to money to buy, houses and cars through our credit score, you now have access to resources, but it's not just your finances that you have to have a high score with. It's the way you think. It's, it's going to be attached to your healthcare, your education. All of those will be a part of the social credit score. And if you score, high enough, you get access to resources. If you score low, then you don't have access to those resources. And what did we see happen to humanity over the last 3 years? If you didn't wear a mask, you couldn't go into a grocery store. Like, how dare someone try to buy food without their mask on? And these basic human rights, these birthrights that we have, were stripped away so fast, and 99% of the population complied with it. And so when I think, okay, is Canada, are they on the verge of economic collapse? I actually see it as it's going to get really hard for the average person. Anyone middle to low income, it's going to get really harder for them, but that's by design because they want those people on UBI. And what Canada is actually going through is a massive shift where they're going into this digital technocratic surveillance state, but this flattening of society and wealth needs to happen in order for them to quote unquote successfully roll out their digital technology, because the more people that feel disempowered, the more they'll accept what's coming in. And that's, the QR codes, the social credit system. You get your food stamps if you comply with X, Y, and Z. There's smart cities. So from their perspective, they're winning. From the human perspective, it's getting harder. And this is where if people really want to survive what's coming down the pipe, because it is coming, community is going to be your number one resource. Community. Back in the tribal days where we used to help each other with food, water, shelter, all of those things, where there's a huge population that are awakening to that and coming together for those reasons, because it's still happening. All of the technological rollout is still going to happen.
Y'all are killing me. I want to talk another hour. I mean, commercial real estate, like in downtown LA, it's a ghost town. And I think it's probably one of the worst places in all of our country, at least. When you think about 15-minute cities, while it's not being propagated as much in America, I've heard about it in Canada. San Francisco seems to have structures to be able to implement it quickly. And of course, Trudeau and his contingency up there would make sure that that they're the first ones to execute it. And then the social credit score, it kind of creates this government-centric religion, thought control, thought policing, going to potential jail or getting fines for how you think, what you believe in, and who is your highest authority. Mm-hmm. And so now I thought, this is, you see my background. I'm a Bitcoiner. You guys understand, have some Bitcoin, I'm sure. I wanted to talk about it a little bit, but again, there just seem to be more heavy topics that you guys want to talk about. And I'm so thrilled with how the show went. But the last question I want to talk about is, you're talking about middle to low income and how they'll be the ones that are ostracized, that are hurt the most by this transformation, this 2030 agenda, if you will, implementing their technocratic this digital technology, these digital currencies, CBDCs. People who are in those lower income brackets, they really can't access that base layer money to go purchase property, even in places of where the property value is lower. But then there's Bitcoin. And I'm wondering, where do you guys see Bitcoin from a use case perspective for these people, the people that are in most danger? And even if you want the people that are more well off as well, where do you see Bitcoin incorporated into this whole next 10 years, this 2030 agenda, this sovereign individuality? If you guys can give me both your perspectives on Bitcoin. Karla, I'll start with you.
I mean, I wish I had more of it after last week when it went up to 90K.
90K in Canada. Oh yeah. Different. I forget you guys have a different dollar. Yeah. I was like, oh, what? Hold on. Let me go buy some. No, I'm just playing. Continue. Go ahead.
It definitely has a huge role. I don't believe in putting all my eggs in one basket. We want to be able to make money. I love what Audrey does, for example. She's like, oh, you want to put money in an RRSP? I can help you do that. And I'll talk to you about gold and silver and Bitcoin and all the things. So Bitcoin should be probably something that it should be an avenue because it's a freedom system, the way that it was developed. I have had some questions about whether or not it really is untouchable and safe, only because everything that's happened in the last 4 years, every single thing was one of those things that we said, oh, that would never happen. And it all happened. So that's why I personally put my eggs in like a few different baskets. And I have a lot to learn when it comes to Bitcoin, but I have some. I think it's important. I definitely wouldn't have any money in a bank. I keep just what I need to pay bills in the bank, and the rest is in property, crypto, gold and silver. Yeah, I wouldn't trust a bank right now. So it's a way to take your power back. And for the people that don't have a lot of money to invest, Bitcoin or precious metals, you can get started right away with just a little bit. And sometimes people negate the power of that. They're like, well, what's that? What's $100 going to do? What's $1,000 going to do? And that stops them from doing it. But they're not paying attention to the compound effect. If you make a plan, if you say every month, I'm going to put $100 into that, that's going to add up quickly. And if you're in a precarious place, you want to do that sooner than later because it's going to take time. And like I said, the financial stuff is going to whip our heads back. It is going to come suddenly. So you do want to start building, stacking, educating yourself. But even when it's only a little bit in those accounts, what does that do to a person? Confidence. There's so many people in this freedom space that are soaking up the doom and gloom, and they're feeling disempowered, and they're not doing anything about it to practically get themselves into a better position. Bitcoin is one of those things. They could start putting money into that account now. Even if it's not a lot, it's going to make you feel better. Even just, I remember the first time I figured out what a Bitcoin was. I was like, what is it? I was working with a coach. I'm like, what is it? How do I get it? Now what? What's a cold key? Even going through those steps, you become empowered and becomes easier and easier and less scary. And now you're capable of doing other things as well.
Those are the kind of things that a lot of people won't understand the power they have internally unless they apply themselves. You have to kind of step in the water to learn to swim. You can't learn to swim without being in the water in the first place. So a lot of people say having skin in the game. I tell you, when you buy one house, you say, can I buy another? And when you buy some Bitcoin, you realize how enabling it is. You say, what's more to learn about it? Audrey, you want to add to your perspective? What's your perspective on Bitcoin? How does it apply to your business model? How do you think it applies to people in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's necessary. I do coach on it, that it is necessary. Where people get hung up is their risk tolerance with it. And so for people just starting out in the Bitcoin space, or crypto for that matter, because I have a full education on that, is for them to understand their risk tolerance. And I bump it up against, okay, if you're going to grow potentially your portfolio and you've got all your money sitting in a savings account at 1%, it's actually losing about 20% because of inflation. With crypto, yes, it's priced on the markets and stuff, on the crypto markets, and it's volatile, but it's something that you can start pulling out in pieces, even if it's just $20. I encourage them, like, if they haven't dipped their toe in, just do $20 because you can buy fractional pieces of it. Because once you start getting into that game, you realize just how powerful of a tool it is, because now your money's not just sitting in a bank account losing money to inflation, and you may or may not be able to access it because the bank puts limits on how much you can withdraw. What you are opening yourself up to when you purchase an asset like crypto is your power back, because you're buying an asset which now you have to manage, and there's so much empowerment in that. And so it's a big learning curve. I recommend for beginner investors, try with 2% of your portfolio into crypto. So that could mean $20 for someone, that could mean $1,000 for someone, but 2% so that it's low risk. And if the prices do go up and down, because they will, it's inevitable, your portfolio can withstand it. Portfolio, I went into it, 7 years ago because of the fact that it was another asset outside of the central banking system that I could then manage, that provided me with peace, safety, security of my portfolio, because now the power was in my hands. If there was price volatility, then you just educate yourself on trading, on your stop losses, on your entry and exit points, so that you're maintaining your capital and you're buying low, and then you can, ride the wave and then sell off at a good price and then go back in. But that is a huge learning curve where people will get into it if they just know how the whole system works with $20, how to buy, how to sell, how to trade, how to move the money back into your bank account. Because it's here to stay. It's like ignoring the debit card when it came out into the general population. Ignoring Bitcoin is like ignoring when things went from cash to debit. Like, it's another way to transact. But the key is it's got that freedom aspect where now you're managing it, not the bank. And there are ways to safeguard it in a way where it's more in your control. So, Karla, you had a question of, how, everything that potentially could have happened in the last 4 years did. With Bitcoin, I've seen, both ends of the spectrum where they're like, it's a freedom asset, but then the other end of the spectrum is saying, oh, it's just getting people more onto, the fourth industrial revolution, where they're going to control you even more. I've seen both sides of the argument. The thing is, the asset, the original intention of it was to give the power back to the people. But of course, the elites see it. And then what they do is try to control it with their regulation. And they create brokerages, they create banks, they create wallets that are in their control. And they say, okay, if the asset is there, it's there, but let's control it in our centralized banking system. So if you're going to keep your Bitcoin in, the broker, on the exchange, if you're going to start using the wallets of the central bank, you've lost all control of your Bitcoin. If you actually know how to keep your Bitcoin in your own private wallet, we can exchange peer-to-peer, and that is as safe as it gets for in terms of your freedom and your sovereignty over your money. So there are ways in which they're going to try to hijack the freedom aspect of having Bitcoin. But, it's a matter of educating yourself with what the intention of the asset was, and then learning that now you're responsible for the security and safeguarding of it, and it's not at the banks anymore. Because right now the program is, I earn a paycheck, it gets deposited into my bank account, the bank secures it. With Bitcoin, I buy it, I put it in my private wallet, I secure it. That's like a huge journey that people are making right now that they can't wrap their heads around. And it's no different than someone taking their health into their own hands. They have to take their wealth into their own hands as well. But it's a journey for sure. It's something that I meet with empathy when I meet my clients who are just getting into it. So baby steps, but the key is to definitely for the people to get into it.
Self-custody, the most important facet of Bitcoin, which separates you from the banks because the banks, if your money is in the banks, it's not your money. This has been a great show. We have talked about so many things, so much so I've been taking notes like I was back in school, except I'm not being programmed. I'm being informed of how to be a better sovereign individual. Thank you both for coming. Karla, Audrey. First, Audrey, where can people find you?
Yeah, so 2 places. My Instagram is at quantum11.co, and then my website is www.quantum11.co.
Right on. And Karla?
Probably the easiest place to find me is just Instagram. It's at Karla Joy Treadway. Karla's with a K. Website is the same name.com.
Right on. Well, thank you both. And to all the people watching, it was an honor to have these two on the show as great examples for Canada and the world of how to walk the path of freedom and sovereignty. You can check out their websites, their Instagrams, as they mentioned. They will be in the show notes below. Look out for more future shows where we bring other brilliant voices on to help discover why money matters to everything. I am Sir Ulrich, like my father before me. See you next time.